I'm back to camp. Well, we were talking about breathing. We were talking about breathing. I've just run all the way back here. Kilometre and a half. Absolutely fine. I'll show you on a map where I was and at the elevation I was at. We're talking about breathing, so I'm going to pick up. My battery died, as I said it might. Breathing for performance. Why is it important? Life is good, crosshatch. Life is as good as I can make it. Breathing for performance, guys. What kind of performance are we talking about, do you think? Well, I'll not beat about the bush. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about every single aspect of your life. Okay? The fundamentals are very, very simple. Oxygen in, oxygen air in, oxygen extracted, air expelled. Okay? You know, the waste expelled, what we don't need, and the stuff that's been deoxygenized and had the best stuff taken out by our lungs. So, why do we want to learn how to breathe well? As I say, I've just ran back down that face of that mountain in torrential rain, and I'm already absolutely fine. Heart rate's returned to normal, and I like that. That's a power. That's a strength. That is an edge. It is an edge on anyone. It's an edge on the competition. Okay? If you can breathe better than the competition, then you can outlast the competition. If you can breathe in a more beneficial way than someone that is in the same boat as you, perhaps you're under pressure, an external pressure. Say you're going for a job interview and you get anxious and you start to breathe, you know, irrationally or, you know, out of sync. It's a giveaway. It's a giveaway of nervousness. And that's a disposition, that's an affliction, because someone that's looking at you may go, if you're so nervous now, what are you going to be like under the live pressure of the role that you're trying to undertake? And I don't want to go too far into that because that's like psychology and stuff, but if you can understand and grasp the importance of breathing and getting it right and how it can benefit your life, it can make an astonishing difference to your life. I really promise you that. And I know there's a lot of people out there shouting about the Wim Hof method. Shout out to Wim, great guy, brilliant bloke, amazing bloke. There's a lot of people shouting about it, okay? Shout out to the Middlesbrough boys. There's a lot of people shouting about the Wim Hof method, but they don't have any understanding of it. There's a couple of people on YouTube that mention it regularly, and I've watched them, and they don't have any grasp of what he's actually telling us. They've took it literally and they've took it wrongly, and they've put their own kind of understanding on it and made it something that it's not. And that's not a criticism, so I hope it doesn't come across that way. I'm just pointing out that you have to be very, very careful what you listen to. I do what works for me, guys, and I'll try and relate to you in layman's terms the best way I can, because I'm not an encyclopedia, I'm not a thesaurus, I'm not a textbook of information. Everything I do is done by trial and error. Everything I do and everything I accomplish, whatever way it takes me to get there, that's the way I'll say that works. Quite simple. And I don't always do things the easiest way. I try and find the most direct way, but sometimes it may look complicated, but it's a way that works for me. What you have to do is start at the bottom. You have to realise that breathing is a massive, massive part of living correctly. It's a massive part of speaking, of holding your own in conversation. It's just, it's everything. It is the way you perform at your best. If you can understand what your body's doing physiologically, you can do anything. You can achieve anything. Wim has achieved greatness by learning more about his body in the last 5 or 10 years of his life than he ever knew in the first 40 years of his life. A quite incredible human being, but a human being nonetheless. And human beings are breakable. Breakable because when you break it down to brass tacks, guys, we're literally all equal. We're flesh and bone and sinew, and we're 8 pints of blood. And we all kind of start out the same way. Breathing to me has become a massive part of my every single day, because anxiety affects everyone, and some really strong people who portray strength and portray, abandonment of all things negative and kid on that they are superhuman and above, uh, you know, above the average. Everybody suffers from anxieties. Everybody. You'll often hear me saying that I understand fear, so I have overcame fear. I do understand it, and it's a false emotion, and I will stick to that. That is my mantra on fear. Fear is a lie. They lie to you from the day you can crawl about fear. They imprint it on you. Let me explain that. When you look at something, say you look at a cliff face that you have to climb, or you're going to do an abseil or a bungee jump or a skydive or something, every single person will be claiming a different emotion. Some will be on a adrenal high, some will be shaking like a leaf, terrified, some will be breathing through anxiety. It is a misunderstanding, and it's a lack of understanding of the event. Okay, that's all it is. So, if you can turn fear into euphoria, if you can rebrand it and say, I'm not going to, this feeling that I'm having, I'm not going to call that fear. I'm going to train my mind to call that euphoria. This thing I'm getting is natural. That is my body boiling the energy. It's boiling up, getting ready for, you know, the pinnacle, the explosion, the event. I'm going to rebrand that feeling of fear as euphoria. And I'm going to convince myself that what I'm feeling just now is excitement. It's not fear. And I've got a simple analogy that I've said to a few people. If you're watching the film Jaws and you hear the incredible musical score, you hear that score, right? It's very foreboding, and it, it, it emits a kind of emotion inside you, trepidation, what's to come. You know the shark's coming. You know the shark's coming. Because that's what happens. But remove the musical score, okay? And put in the theme from Rainbow. And then watch Jaws. It's no longer a horror kind of flick, is it? It no longer holds any substance whatsoever. Any horror film, Halloween, any of them, Turn down the musical score, turn the sound off and watch them, and absolutely nothing will happen. You won't feel anything. Why? Because masters of horror like Stephen King, Wes Craven, guys like that understand the savvy. They understand the mindset of the human being. They understand the emotive side of the brain. We are truly only scared of our own imagination. When people go out on water and can't see underneath them, they imagine monsters and sharks. Even in a freshwater loch in Scotland, they imagine sharks. Why? Because fear has been imprinted on them. There are no sharks in fresh water. There are no monsters in fresh water. There are only small fish. But everybody imagines it. And people have terrifying demons about these things. And folk will say, I don't want to swim out of my depth because I don't know what's down there. Yeah, you do. You do know what's down there. Water and fish and nothing else. You do know. Your imagination is running wild. This is where breathing comes in. Breathing. The thing that everybody takes for granted, the thing that nobody practices, the thing that everyone just assumes they do correctly. Migsy, of course Nessie exists. I've seen Nessie. Had a cup of tea with her 2 years ago. And a jam scone. What I'm saying is, breathing is a massive part of, it's a massive tool in overcoming anxiety, fear, trepidation, nervousness, that foreboding feeling, the unknown, everything, the list goes on and on and on. Breathing, when you're in control of your physiological state, you're in control of everything. You're in control of every single thing and every single aspect of your day. You're also in control of the outcome of your day and the outcome of all the things that you take on. Do you think that's extreme? Do you think it's as simple as that? Of course there are other additional tools and additional things you can do. Breathing supersedes everything. And we all take it for granted. And do you know what I'm going to say, guys? See if you are online just now. There's 32 people watching. See if you were all honest. See if you were all honest, right? And you came on and said, I'll admit that I don't understand my breathing. See if I said, right, I'm going to set you a task and you start panicking about it immediately. Right? Breathing, guys, is the answer. Be in control of yourself and you will start to douse your anxieties. You will drown them out. You will overwhelm them and overcome them by mastering breathing techniques. Proper breathing, not shallow breathing, not 100 breaths a minute, not ridiculous, shallow, pointless breathing, which everybody does. Proper breathing, okay? Proper, functional breathing that can be taught, that can be learnt by anyone. If you're not doing it yet, if you are not trying, then you don't want to get anywhere. Why do you want to be a lesser version of yourself? What are you on this channel for? If it's only to catch up and have a pastime and some banter, that's fine as well. That's fine. But if I I can help you to overcome anxiety or one weak aspect of your lifestyle, then I'm going to try and do it. Not to make these machines and robots and, you know, run through walls, and because that's pointless. Nobody needs that at any stage of life. Unless you ask me to help you to get to that, then we don't need to achieve that level and that status. But what we do want to do is give everybody equally the tools and the knowledge, the fundamental basics, to get in control of their emotions. Breathing. Start with the basics. Start with the single most easiest thing to learn and master: breathing. And I promise you, it will be life changing. Learn to understand what breathing actually is. Everybody takes it for granted. Everybody takes it for granted. Because we just do it so many times. Brian's saying he could swear I've had a few beers tonight. Brian, I'm full of energy, mate. I'm 7 years off the beer, buddy. And where I am, the nearest shop's probably, I don't know, maybe 8-10 miles away. Anyway, no beer here, mate. Sorry to say. Yeah, beer. Nah, no beer. What I do have is a big massive jar of olives, which I'm going to scalp. So guys, breathing, right? Learn to understand the basics. Get on top of the basics. And honest to God, it's something that when I started to actually understand it, I was absolutely not a lot in my life has ever amazed or astonished me, okay? When I actually correctly started to breathe, I was astonished. I was astonished at the difference it made to my life. I was astonished at what I was able to overcome. And I'll be honest with you, it changed my mindset and it changed everything. And it gave me a power and a level of confidence that I didn't have prior to it. And that was just breathing. And I was doing it long ago, right? When I was on rifle ranges shooting at, very far away targets, trying to hone my skills and marksmanship principles and stuff like that. And I was a very, very good shot. And I won awards for shooting and stuff. And I was doing it then, but I was doing it then subconsciously. I wasn't acutely aware of what I was doing, but I knew I was doing it differently than I had done, and it gave me a great level of control. And when your breathing is on point, and you are under duress, you become much more aware of little atmospheric changes and little subtle kind of changes in everything, in your surroundings and people's behaviours. Why? Because you've got much more mind, you've got much more scope left over because you're not concentrating enough on your breathing. You're not focusing and thinking about that because you're in complete control of it subconsciously. So you've got so much more left over to focus on those other things, and you can attune to different things, and you can spread it out a little. You can focus on this, you can focus on that, you can focus here. You can literally, your brain literally becomes binocular. It becomes binocular like your vision. You have a great peripheral vision. You can see everything, and you're more aware of everything, all from breathing. And there'll be some people watching this that go, I don't get it, I don't get it, and maybe I don't want to get it. Maybe some people just don't care. But if you do care and you want to know more, I'm happy to help. Everybody's got a different theory on this, but the reality is, you know, the great man himself, Wim Hof, he really is getting it right. He really is getting it right, guys, and it is hard to argue with his results. And I remember years and years ago, probably 20 years ago, when it was a maybe trail running magazine or something, and Nike brought out a tape, like a cassette tape, and I used to play it in my Walkman. It was called Mind Running, and it was like one of the very first audio podcast type things. It was somebody talking in a repetitive tone and stuff, and they were subliminally, educating you about training your mind and stuff. And that's my kind of recollection of it. Somebody might remember it. And I always thought about that tape. And I used to go running and put it on, and I'd be like, something's happening here. I swear to God, right, one day I went out, and I used to run 8 and 9 miles regularly, 2-3 times a week, sometimes more from a really young age. And this one time I went and ran, which today I could probably safely say is probably 14, 15 miles, not kilometres, and I was around 14 years of age, 14 or 15 years of age. That's a lot of miles, by the way, for a young guy. And I did it, and I didn't even realise I'd done it until I thought about it. My mind was somewhere else. And then I knew that I could run and run and run, and literally my engine just kept going. And then one day, I remembered I was training to join the Marines, and somebody said, "How many mile are you doing?" Somebody that never had a clue about training, but because they were 10 years older than me, they automatically thought that qualified them as an expert. You get people like that. And he said, "You should be running 5 mile a day with £20 in your back," or right, something. He said something like that, which was just an off the cuff mark off the top of his head, with no background, nothing. He'd never ran in his life. In fact, he was a bodybuilder. And basically, yeah, somebody always wants to tell you something different. So I go back to telling you that I do everything by trial and error. I remembered that lesson, and I remembered that tape, and I remembered the feeling of running that very long. It was a Sunday, and I stopped in at Manty Bell's on the way back, and I couldn't believe how far I'd came and ran. It was absolutely fine. And then it's another 2.5-3 miles up the road, and that was easy as well. And something changed, and that's when I started to say, the point of that story, was that I started to say to people, it's all in the head. It's all in the head. And you would get the folk that would argue the point and say, no, you've got to train, and you've got to... No. I've done marathon miles with no training. I've done it several times. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it wasn't hard. I've done half marathons and not even noticed, because I had that strength of mind. I had it in my head that I could do it, no problem at all, with basic training, but just every day doing what I'm doing, 2 and 3 and 4 week layoffs. But what I always remembered was breathing. John Beck saying mind over matter. Yep, absolutely, John. And I remembered that as long as I was in control of my breathing, all of these things were relatively... I'm not going to use the word effortless, but they weren't hard. They weren't hard because I had great strength of mind. And you may say, you're athletically gifted, or you're naturally not nonsense. I was never athletically gifted. I've had to work hard at it all my life. I just have a good engine for running, and even at 14, 15 stone, I can run an obscene amount of miles pretty effortlessly, and it's all in the mind. Breathing gets me there. I'm always in control of my breathing. And when I've been under pressure at times in my life, be it in the services, be it when something, you know, when I was in a certain type of conflict and I was under, real pressure, I was very, very calm. I was calm to the point of I literally thought I wasn't breathing sometimes. And maybe that's just in some of us and maybe it's not. I believe that you can hone skills to a degree. There are just some people that are naturally super nervous. But with great help and the right information, these people can get on top of themselves. They may never truly, truly overcome things, but they will get on top of it. And it all starts with breathing. Breathing for performance. Performance in every single aspect of your life. From the minute you get up in the morning till you go to your bed, breathing is the single most important thing that you will get right on any given day. That's a fact. But 99% of us take it for granted, which is a real shame. Because if you learn to understand it, it would change everything for you. It changes the whole dynamic. It's a fact. You can argue it all you want, and you can shrug it off, and you can listen to this and put your phone down when I go off and forget that we spoke. But you won't change my opinion on it. You just won't. Nothing you can do will prove me wrong. The proof is in the pudding. And that's a fact as well. I can go now, right now, and go and run round this big loop run. It's about 4 kilometres. And I can come straight back here and pick this phone up. And within 1 or 2 minutes, I will be absolutely back to normal. Because I'm in control of my breathing all the time. And I breathe very shallow. Like, I've got a very, very small amount of breaths per minute. A lot less than normal. Because I'm in control of it. If you're sitting just now going, you should never have let it get that bad. Get on top of it. Learn the skills. Understand the basic physiology. And start to work towards bringing it back to a more sustainable level and something that you feel comfortable with, because it can't be comfortable being out of breath. It can't be. Breathing, so important. Anyway, I hope that some of that was interesting, and I hope that some of you might even take it on and do something with it. You will get results, guys, if you work at it, but you have to do it every day. You can't cheat. And I forgot to tell you that, but you can't cheat at this. You can't say, I'll do it, and then you do it for a day and then you don't do it for a week. That's not how this works. If you want to learn about control, if you want to learn about the true potential of the mind and the true potential of the body. Learn to breathe properly. Stop taking it for granted that you're doing it correctly, because I can assure you you're not. You won't be. You can't be. If you're even wondering at anything that I've just said in the past 20 minutes, then you're not breathing right in the first place. I know for a fact, I just need to speak to people when I meet them, and I know they're not breathing correctly just by speaking to them, because they're gasping for air during every and at the end of every sentence. Miggsy's got asthma, so I get it. Miggsy, you especially have to work at your breathing. And you can really, really, really help yourself by doing it. You'll know that better than anybody. Asthma is a terrible affliction. Horrendous affliction, asthma. Asthma and diabetes are two absolutely horrendous things for people to go through. And most people just, don't know much about them and take them for granted. And yep, big burden. We can all do ourselves so much better by understanding the basics. And it all starts with breathing. There you go. There's some food for thought, guys. Well, I'm going to have a cup of tea. And there you go. If Brian Gallagher wants to post me 6 beers. Only kidding, Brian. Guys, I've not looked at any of the comments, sorry. I've had them off because... Sorry. There's loads, sorry. Well, hello to everybody. Somebody's asking about the voles. I found a wee nest, which was a vole's nest, just not far from here, and I put them down in it. Tried to give them some milk and some bits and bobs, but I put them down in it, and I'm going to go back and check them later. There were other voles in and out it, so I'm hoping that they take them on. And that was the best I could do with them under the circumstances. Thanks for all the comments, guys. I really appreciate it, as I always do. And again, I'm not an expert, it's only my advice. But I would like the best for people, and if you're on this channel to grow, then stick with it, stick with us. There's a lot of intelligent people here giving out some great advice, and my word is not the law. It's just what works for me by trial and error. So everything that I suggest, I have tested it extensively over many, many years, and I do vouch for it, and I can verify it. As I say, I always say the proof is in the pudding. My results are tried and tested. So anything that I say I've done. And if it didn't work for me, I wouldn't tell you it did. If breathing wasn't that important, I wouldn't tell you. Rix and Gracie. Yeah, Rix and Gracie understood breathing before people knew what it was. A great film called Choke. Rixon's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner from the Gracie dynasty. Yeah, he understood breathing. His breathing was phenomenal. So there you go, guys. That's it. Breathing's so important. And I hope that you take up on it and maybe read a little about it. And if you really want to start somewhere, you can't go far wrong watching Wim Hof. Just type into YouTube Wim Hof 11-minute breathing, and that's it. There's where you start. Go through the process, enjoy the process, and embrace the process, and stick with it, and let me know your results. Okay. As always, thank you. Good night, and stay healthy, and stay steady, striving. Okay, guys.